Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy, episode 50, halfway to 100. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder, and have you ever wondered what it would be like to record your show in front of a live studio audience? Well, today's guests, Rob and Martha Southgate from Southgate Media Group, have been doing just that for years and helping indie podcasters in the Chicagoland area like moi do just that. And we're doing just that again this Saturday, September 28th at the Blue Box Cafe in Elgin, Illinois, all day long. Podcast Envy will be taping live at 12:30 p.m. and we'll be talking podcasting and personal empowerment. And guess what? It's really fun to record with an audience. So if you are around the northern suburbs-ish of Chicago this weekend, I do so hope that you would come, say hi, and check it out. The link for details will be in the show notes for this episode at thecreativeimpastor.com/PodEnvy050 for episode 50 and in the description of your app, of course. This episode was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the first ever Women in Podcasting Festival in Chicago, conceived of and produced by Martha and Rob in 2018. At the time, I put the file on a shelf, Dropbox that is, and am finally dusting it off, editing and publishing it for your listening enjoyment. And lest you think of a dusty old podcast episode being dry and archaic and boring, this is probably the most laughs I have ever had while listening back to one of my own interviews. If they weren't producing podcasts and live events for podcasters, this husband-wife duo could definitely be touring as a comedy act. Also, there are tons of insights into what it's like to pour your blood, sweat, tears, and dollars, lots and lots of dollars, into producing live events. You'll hear where the inspiration comes from, the ups, the downs, and well, I just think you're going to have a great time listening. Oh, because this was recorded live, I've decided not to interrupt with a Podcast Angels segment, and instead, I just want to invite you to do a few things right now. Number one, pop over to thecreativeimpastor.com/craft and culture to get my super special behind the scenes podcast, Craft and Culture, specifically for podcasters who want to take their experience of podcasting deeper. Right now, the first 2 episodes of this premium podcast feature industry insights and predictions from podcast movement and how to create right relationship with your guests. Next up, we'll be exploring the problems with our obsession with story. It's an obsession, folks. And preview my outstanding panelists for our She Podcasts Live panel, Fall in Love with Your Own Voice. Oh, speaking of She Podcasts Live, that's invitation number 2. Join us. Follow the link in the show notes and then pop into our panel workshop on Friday so that you too can honestly say that you love hearing the sound of your own voice. She Podcast Live is coming up super quick in October of 2019. Don't miss it. And invitation number 3, please join us in Elgin, Illinois this Saturday, September 28th, 2019. Come watch me make an episode of Podcast Envy at 12:30 p.m. during the Southgate Media Group podcast marathon. Whew. And in the meantime, let me introduce you right now to Martha and Rob Southgate from the 2018 Women in Podcasting Festival. Well, I'll introduce you to them right after a very lengthy introduction of myself. Podcast Envy. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. And no, I did just give myself the name Your Podcast Boss at some point in time, but it's not for nothing. It's because I've been podcasting for a little over 3 years. I have 2 shows that I produce, The Creative Imposter and Podcast Envy. I also have And yes, these are stickers that if you are here live for the Women in Podcasting Festival at Otherworld Theater, these stickers are for my teenage mentees show. So I have a group of teenagers that I work with on the south side of Chicago who go to a high school for students with diverse learning challenges and learning disabilities. And those students produce Power Your Story. And that's something that we've been working on. We're working on season 5, but someone has yet to post season 4 because I ran out of prep hours last season, but we're working on it. And I've also been coaching a lot of people on how to launch their show or how to improve their show. And I also do podcast editing for a handful of shows. So there's a lot that I do in podcasting. And I did not ever think of podcasting as a career when I got started. Honestly, I got started in podcasting because I had to close down the first business that I ever started because I could not make money. I tried for 5 years and I ended up completely broke, filing bankruptcy, totally depressed, no business, no job, no money, no energy because I'd been working like a dog trying to make that business work. And I had not a clue what to do next. Like nothing. I just wanted to stay in my bed with the covers over my head and my cat snuggled up next to me and hope that somehow I was going to have money for groceries later. So that's where I was. And I had one thing that I enjoyed doing at that time, which was listening to podcasts, because listening to podcasts, I could imagine these other worlds that these other podcasters were creating. So whether it was a life coaching podcast, or whether it was a business podcast, or whether it was a storytelling podcast, no matter what kind of show it was, the hosts were creating these worlds. And they were creating, in some cases, businesses around their shows. And they were creating, in some cases, communities who would listen to their shows and interact. And maybe they'd interact online, or maybe they'd have live meetups. And I was thinking to myself, well, I have no idea how to make a podcast into a business. I also have no idea how to make a podcast, but I think I can figure it out. I think this is something I can do. It doesn't seem like it'll cost a lot of money. So maybe this is the next step, and then I'll just start the show and go from there. And that was the beginning of the Creative Imposter. It took me a year from the time that I had this, like, maybe I could start a podcast, to actually getting it out into the world. And then from there, it was like everything just sort of started to happen from there, the show. And then people started asking me, oh, how did you do this or that? Or, oh, I've been thinking about starting a podcast. What do you recommend? How do I get started? And I was like, maybe I should be charging money for all the advice that I'm giving people.
That's where you fall off.
Yeah. Yes, and then
he gives it all away for free.
Right. Oh, wait, yes, charging money. That is how a business works, right? So
I need a refund from Roosevelt University. I have apparently missed that day.
Number one problem with higher education and master's degree, they teach you the craft of doing something and they forget to teach you the business part sometimes.
Yep.
Right? How many people have like a film degree or a media degree or a theater degree or a music degree? Like they teach you how to be awesome at what you do and they do not teach you how to make money by doing it. So anyways, that's a soapbox for another day. So I feel that these experiences qualify me to call myself your podcast boss. And Podcast Envy is a show all about the craft of podcasting. It is not a show about whether you should use the ATR 2100 or some 700 Heil PR, whatever, blah, blah, blah microphone. It is not a show about, the nuts and bolts of how to assemble a podcast. It is a show about, okay, so you have a podcast and then what? Like, what do you do with that? How are you building community? What else are you doing? How are you bringing your listeners in? And so I thought that for the Women in Podcasting Festival at Otherworld Theater in Chicago, here where we are right now, it would be really interesting to take a look at how do you do a live event for podcasting? Because it's kind of a weird thing. Podcasting, we think of this thing where you're like
in your house or a closet, or in my case, a kitchen pantry, or if you're
hiding in your jammies.
Hiding in your jammies. Nobody can see you. It's just your voice. I use Skype, but I use Skype audio only for my interviews. So, whatever. I don't even have to comb my hair or put makeup on or anything like that. So then when you think of like, oh, well, a live event for podcasting, that's weird. And yet they're getting more popular. I feel like I'm seeing more and more live events and live podcasting festivals and shows coming up. So I thought, well, who better to talk to than Rob and Martha Southgate of Southgate Media Group, who are putting on this festival. That was a very long-winded introduction, and I think I'm probably at time.
And that's fine.
So thanks for being here for the interview. It was wonderful to talk with you, and now we're done? No.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be called talking at you? Because
Right.
we just sat here.
But you were nodding very
Yes.
I was
supportively
aggressively
and
nodding.
So for Facebook, that was a
enthusiastically.
full-on thing. That was
Yeah.
Totally.
And
I
I
didn't
didn't realize
validated right
I was
now.
supposed to brush my hair. I missed the memo that I was supposed to brush my hair before I did the live event. I'm like,
Run
oh,
your fingers through it
yeah.
and do
It's
a
like,
little,
oh,
like,
okay. Yeah, no, this is
shampoo
as good as it
commercial
gets no
pause.
matter where I go. But yeah, we're supposed to be dressing up for these. No.
I'm out of pajama pants. I'm dressed.
That's true. Yeah, we did do that very well. We got out of the pajama pants.
That's good. Step one.
Yes.
When producing a live event for podcasting, get out of
Get
pajamas.
dressed.
Wear clothes.
Because people will see
I'm going
you.
to disagree with that. I think that if it's a live event for podcasting, I think if that's how you want to represent, go for it.
I think we should run one where like pajamas are mandatory.
We should do like a nighttime event on after hours podcast.
Like a sleepover.
Podcasting
no,
all
I don't want to
night
do that.
long.
That's way too much togetherness.
How much fun with night drinking?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Podcasting and night drinking. Votes?
I see
Yeah.
something happening in
Yeah.
the future.
Yep, I think this could work. This is what happens. See, you put us together, and you say something about
Yeah.
pajamas, and the next thing we have a whole new
You think
whole
we
new
were
event.
joking?
No, this is
Watch
our
your
life.
Facebook tonight.
This is going to be a thing.
It's going viral, y'all.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
So, in all seriousness, why does the Women in Podcasting Festival exist? Where did the idea come from?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
All right. This is what I do. I encourage him to sit with me, and then I push him out of the way as I take over. When we started our company, one of our core values, one of our core missions was to make sure that our company was balanced as equally as possible between men and women, to make sure that we were giving equal voice. And it's one of our greatest passions. And so we had been doing podcast marathons for 4 years, often very lonely podcast marathons, as we would sit here and with all this great content and 3 people. But I digress. But when the first year we did the podcast marathon, we had fun. The second year we did the podcast marathon, and I said, I never want to do this again as long as I live.
Why?
And he agreed
Why
with
did
me.
you say that?
It was a lot of
I'm
work.
going to change this history a little bit because you're
Did I have the
off.
dates all off? This is why he's here. I let him jump
So the
in every
first
so often
one
to
we
fix me.
did, we had quite a few people at.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. People loved it. We thought we were going to die. It was so much.
It was a lot.
And we said, okay, let's start planning the next one. So we plan out the second one, and we have a donation box. I'm not plugging it right now, but you'll get that plug later. But we have a donation box, and we said, hey, you're sitting here for 13 hours of marathon, plus we had a live event on YouTube going at the same time. So 26 hours of
all
concurrent
original.
live podcasting.
Not 13
all different
of
shows.
the same shows.
And we put out our donation box, and people sat there all day, and people loved it and cried and laughed, and we made $6.
Wow.
And we
And
walked
wanted
out
to
of there
die.
and said,
Never again.
never again.
That was not worth
losing my crap over this. I said,
Okay.
I can't do it. So then I was out for a walk.
As we're
and-
wont to.
Yeah. We go out
That's
for
how we
walks, and we're
center.
like, okay. And I made it up to the top of the block, and I was calling it a dream walk. I was going to walk and just whatever came to me, I was going to come home and we were going to talk about, and I was going to walk as long as it took. That's another story I can tell, but
Yeah.
so I made it to the corner before I felt like
He got
somebody-
winded.
I
Oh, no,
did.
I'm kidding.
No, I swear. It was like I got punched in the gut. I hear this voice, clear as a bell, say, you need to do the podcast marathon again.
Ooh.
And I said
We didn't
out
like that
loud,
voice.
No.
We did not like that voice.
And that's
not
where
even
it
a little
felt
bit.
like literally the
Yeah.
wind knocked out of me, and I buckled over and I'm like, what is going on? And I go, I'm not doing it. And I hear, you need to do the marathon again. And I went,
Yeah.
okay, if I'm going to buy into this voice, what does it look like? Why? And it was that you had to actually find a way to make a little money off of it, not $6, because that was painful.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of work.
And we did a ton of work and we made a little bit of money. I'm not saying like rent. I'm saying we made something last year, and we did number 3. That's why I wanted to correct it, because it was this weird progression. And then 4 was the one that just happened last weekend. It was at the end of 3. Now you can take it where this happened.
So we were in Indianapolis doing Indy PopCon. We did a marathon there, and it was a blast. But we were hidden away, so no one knew we were there.
That was technically number 3.5.
But it was fun. Whoa, I'm on the wrong one?
The one where it happened was
This is why, I don't even know why we're up here. Okay.
So it was after 3. So
that was last October. Okay.
Podcasters are coming up raving about it. Audience is raving about it. We had a huge crowd at that one. The first part of the day, you have nothing. I did a keynote for literally me and Chris, who owns the Blue Box. That was it.
And for the Doctor Who fans, it's the Blue Box Cafe.
It's a Doctor Who themed cafe. It's amazing.
It's awesome.
But anyway, at the end of the day, people are like raving about it. Martha comes up. She goes, "Oh my gosh, we did it. It was so great." And I felt weird. I said to her, something's not right. I said, I feel like it wasn't diverse enough. There's something not happening. Mm-hmm. And she went, we need to talk about this. Mm-hmm. We went home that night and
came up with
the idea for Women in Podcasting.
Yeah.
And then I had this horrible name for it. I don't know what it was, Women a Go-Go or something stupid.
No.
It wasn't.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't that.
It was day drinking and ladies.
Yeah, and ladies.
Terrible.
Oh, that's nice.
Terrible. It wasn't. But Martha went, why don't we call it WIP, Women in Podcasting? And I was like, done. That was it. And that's how that happened.
Okay, I don't recall any of this.
Yep, I know. That's why I jumped in.
It's a good thing he's here, because I don't have any memory. What I remember is leaving Indy PopCon and then going, okay, we're going to do this marathon. We picked the date, I think, while we were in Indianapolis. In June, and then went, no problem. Like, how hard can it be to put on a podcast marathon and then a week later, a Women in Podcasting festival?
Can we all say dumb at the same time?
That seems like within, June, July, I have to count on my fingers. Okay, it's sad. Okay. July,
you want to take
August,
a shoe
September.
off?
I do. No, I have enough fingers.
It actually did happen there. So, Rachel, you were at the Indianapolis PopCon. So we have this huge room, and we have amazing content.
The content was fantastic.
And about 4 people. It varied. It varied. But it had to do with the marketing on site. That was a problem. But they were super happy with it. They've invited us again for this year.
And their
the content, like I said, was spectacular. Yeah. But while we're sitting in the middle of this, watching the plane crash into the side of the mountain is how it feels. That's where we were like, we should write to Otherworld and see if we can get the Women in Podcasting thing. What date can we go with? How about October 6th? That's how it all happened in the throes of this.
So we did 3 marathons essentially since June.
Yep.
That's a little nuts now that we say it out loud.
Yep.
Our life doesn't feel that nuts while we're in the middle of doing all of it. But then it's like when we look back on it, we go, whoa, what's that? Like,
here's
what
the
are
thing
we
about Martha.
thinking?
So we get ideas, we talk about them, we get excited.
Were you planning on talking to us? Because
I don't slow down.
We're done. Like, we're off and running.
Yeah, we're almost done.
Okay, we're going.
I don't slow down for a second though. Like I said, I'm already thinking, what am I going to call this nighttime thing? Because I swear to God,
he's going to have a jammy.
Get ready.
It's going to be a jammy thing.
The way it works. PJs and
Lots of PJs.
This is going to, I swear to God, you guys,
PJs.
Get your jammies ready, because this is going to be a thing.
It's going to happen.
This is totally going to happen here.
So,
next week, because we have nothing else going on.
It's not next week. 2 weeks. So the way it works with Martha is we'll start talking about this. We get all excited. I'll go, okay, I'm going to do this. Okay. And she'll go, yes, do it. And then a week later, she'll go, why the hell did you do that? You agreed to it.
Yeah, I don't recall
Boom.
that.
That's how it happens.
Yeah.
So
did we answer your question?
No, I don't even know what we were doing. I don't even know what the question was.
Well, don't worry, because that's why I'm here.
Perfect. Okay.
So what do you think it is about the live events? You seem like you really love the idea of doing these marathons and these live events and pulling in all these different people. So what is it about the live events that you feel like that voice was compelling you forward?
Okay. If anyone was here for the talk I gave a little while ago, and I talked about how I said I would never do live event and I would never do video, which hi. I've been on video like every day of my life since then. Doing it live, I would do it live I would never do another podcast at home in my house in my jammies if I didn't have to. Like, this is everything. I love the give and take. I love seeing people's reactions. I love meeting people one-on-one. Don't come to me. Don't you people come to me. I will cut you. Like, do not come to me. One-on-one. I'm really good with that. But there's nothing to me that compares to having that interaction. And I love it so much.
Okay. So there's a couple of things. One is I have to think about the business part of it. Okay. One of the big questions people ask is, how do you make money at podcasting? The answer is simple. You don't. We have a philosophy that we've had from day one. When we first conceptualized what we were doing and conceptualized this whole network that we have, we said, it is not the podcast that makes the money. It's the things around it. Mm-hmm. How do you do stuff around it? A lot of people go, I'll get affiliate sponsors. Great. Here's $1. Yeah. They'll say, I'll sell t-shirts. Great. Here's $1. And that really is how it is. You just kind of piece these little revenue streams together. And guess what? 5 years later, they still don't amount to more than
it depends on the person.
Live events.
Some people do better than others.
We can't. Yeah, some people do. For us, we repel it. With the marathons and that, even though we're not making very much, we see the potential in it. We see how do I say this? The value that comes back to us. Yes, we kind of pursue it because we say, yeah, you could make a little money at this. And we see that can happen. But the emotional value in the live event exceeds everything.
Just fills our cup.
Yeah. So if there were 4 people here today, the only thing that would upset me is that you, as the podcaster here, only got to talk to 4 people.
Well, except for
right. I'm just saying, if it was 4 in the room, but the emotional part of it is so fulfilling that we'd go, okay, how do we set up the next thing? Mm-hmm. So why are we compelled to do it? Because it really is an awesome experience. When we started doing live 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago in October, the first one we did was because we just had our 4th annual podcast marathon. Okay.
Don't hurt my head.
A year before that, we started just before Halloween. Remember, I did Nightmare on Chicago Street in Elgin by myself. That was our first live one there. Okay. Just before that was Wizard World live.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So,
well, just assume that I don't know.
But when we started it, people didn't do live stuff. I only heard of a couple out there. So we've really had to figure out what that is. And what we found out is, number one, it's not necessarily your podcast. The marathons, it is. Mm-hmm. But you already know, you've done 2. You already know your show is altered already doing it live from when you do it here. It's a different animal, but man, it's awesome
fun.
Animal,
and it makes you kind of branch out and think differently about how you can bring people in. And like our daughter.
And you get that immediate reaction, which usually we don't give a crap about.
Right. But it's so fun. There's just something
you guys
fun.
Laugh or whatever. It's so
or like we boo, everybody boos him, and like we'll wait to find out how long it takes. And it's like, oh my God, you've gone so long without getting booed today. Thank you. He lives for that. Like he'll say stuff just to get booed.
I gotta say, I come from a world where I did like improv and that, and I fully from day one went, any reaction's a good reaction. Yeah. If I can get a reaction, a boo is just as valuable to me as a clap or a laugh. Mm-hmm. So I love getting booed. Yeah. We do this live thing at Comic-Cons. We call it Geektastic Cage Match, where we pit two things against each other. And I'll say, okay, we're going to argue out The Flash versus Quicksilver. Go. And people will be like, whatever. Every one that we do, I start out by saying something super inflammatory, usually insulting somebody in the audience. They boo me, and I'll say, by the end, you're going to love me. And I can't
They
get
do.
out of the room
Yeah.
without a million pictures and talking.
But they boo him every time.
Yeah. I got that emotional reaction, and then I get him on my side.
And we had one, they did Batman versus Grumpy Cat.
Grumpy Cat.
Grumpy Cat won by a
What?
landslide.
Yeah.
And it was the funniest debate I've ever seen in my life. And I believe it's on YouTube or something.
Yeah,
It was,
I think so.
Because the Des Moines people filmed it. But
Yeah.
it was a blast. But yeah, we like to do things like that too.
Did we answer your question? I think we
where
went
we invent
completely off
game
again.
shows and do things like that. So we don't just do our podcast live. We create a live event with.
Yes.
So it sounds like the biggest challenge with doing these live events is getting the word out there
Yes.
and getting
Marketing.
people
Marketing.
to participate and to show up, not participate in terms of, I don't think you have trouble getting people into the festival to do their
All
shows,
of
but
this
the audience
is easy.
Yeah.
It's getting people to understand what they're about to see.
Yes.
And so we go, oh, you got to see this. Like, we got all these great shows, and they're like, huh? You know, so our
And like you
always
said,
our
it's
hardest
tough.
part.
People go, what's a
I don't
podcast? It's like an
understand.
intimate thing. I
Yeah.
listen on my headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is a different animal.
And they're like, you're making us leave our house and pay to go watch. I'm like, no, you have no idea.
You have no
It's an
idea.
experience. Like,
Yeah.
you're paying for the experience, and it's getting that much talent in one lineup. Like, it's just, to me, I just find it magical when we sit here and we watch
Magical.
everybody do their, just.
I do too. I don't need to say a word on these, which is hard to believe. I really don't. I sat out there watching on Facebook, and I was like, oh my God, I would have gone to this event if anyone was doing this. It's amazing.
Yeah. And so what's your vision for the Women in Podcasting Festival specifically? I know that you have some things in the works and
A
in
pajama
mind.
party. Tasteful pajamas,
Yeah.
ladies.
And
Yeah, it's not
drinks.
that creepy.
No.
No, I can't have that. Well, one thing, I don't have an official date, but I can say, even with this, where we're like, stress, we went, yeah, this is not over. We got to keep doing
We hadn't
this.
even had it
We,
yet.
we
Yeah,
love
like,
this.
we hadn't even started.
This, to me, is the greatest. So 2020 is the next one. We don't know where it's going to be except Chicago. We don't know. I mean, it might be here, but it is going to be right around March 8th, that weekend. So mark your calendars. And if you want to get on the show, start putting your name in the hat immediately, because it ties into International Women's Day. Because what are we doing here but celebrating women?
Okay, now hang on. He says it's not going to be till 2020.
It's a year and a half.
No. There's no way. So we're doing it probably at colleges.
Oh, yeah. The official one.
Yeah.
But it's like with our podcast marathon, we just had podcast marathon 4.
Right. Then
But-
there's 4.5.
Then there's all these other points.
like-
So the official Whip 2 will be
Whip it
20
good. It's going to be called Whip It
Whip
Good.
It Good.
Is that legal? Is that copyright?
I'm pretty sure it's not going to be called that. Okay. But yeah, we will.
I don't think we should sell whippets there either, because that's
No.
going to get a little weird. No, but it will be, the official number 2 will be March, right around the 8th of 2020.
My inner
That gives us
12-year-old
time-
boy is just locked on to the number 2.
Oh, I know. And we're going to talk
Like,
about
there's
it.
just so much poop going on in my head
Yep,
right
poop
now.
talk.
Okay.
Welcome to Poop Talk.
Because I swear
But
to God,
that
I'm
gives us
12.
time, because
Okay.
we're talking about the business part of it. We didn't get any sponsors for this. That's how we can actually pay for this.
Now we have to others, but for whatever reason, this one was crickets.
Yeah, it was crickets.
And I think
Although,
it was just because it
It's
was, we did it, we pushed it too fast because we didn't even start until June. We didn't even think about starting it until June.
right, we had the idea over a year ago, but we didn't
We didn't execute.
execute. So this time it
This
gives
was
us
an
time,
experiment.
which also says to you, if anybody listening, anybody in the room wants to get involved on the back end of it, wants to like help make things happen, please, we're looking for it.
Because I don't.
Yeah.
I don't help him. And so the poor guy, he does it all by himself. And then I just show up and go,
Martha
I'll talk
has,
for you.
As you heard in her keynote,
They didn't hear most of them. I don't know. I don't know who's here. Maybe it's
She's
someone.
a lot
When you
to
go
work
back
with.
and listen to the keynote,
I'm a
after
lot.
the fact,
I'm a lot
find
to
out-
work around.
You'll find out that I do understand, and the value that she brings into it is not that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sits on me a lot. And yeah, I'm always looking for people that want to get involved, want to make this grow. I want this festival, you talk about the vision, I want this festival
want it
to be
everywhere.
friggin' huge.
Yeah.
And I want to do it all over the world.
Yes, we want it
and
everywhere.
I want to have it streaming, and I want women podcasters to be like, boom!
Yes.
That's what I want.
That's what we want. That's exactly what it is. We wanted on college campuses. We wanted everywhere.
NIU actually potentially wants to have one.
Which is why I said we're not waiting till 2020.
Yeah,
we're going to have them sooner.
So it's a
Just
little more
not the
travel for the
official
Chicago
one.
people. But NIU was saying it. They were like, how big an audience do you want? 20,000? I'm like,
yes, we would like that.
Yes, I do.
Although I don't think we'd get any podcasters willing to do it.
Terrified, but you should be.
In front of 20,000? All right, I'm all for that. I would do it. I would just put blinders on and pretend it's not happening.
I've always said, I'm not afraid. If there was a room of 20,000 people, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start talking, it works. And if you cry, you cry.
Right.
You know?
Well, if we can't cry in front of each other, really?
Sweet. Do it.
Our daughter stood up
It's
in front of
reaction too.
At Comic-Con. She stood up in front of 3,000 by herself. She got up. She was with one of our friends, and she got up and she goes, "I have a question." And she walks over, stood in line for the mic, got up to ask Michael Rooker and Palm Clementine. And she asked a question in front of 3,000 people.
She made people laugh. She asked a question,
and she did a total mic drop at the end. And she was just like, "I don't think you're dead," and she walked away. And
it made Michael Rooker. He was like, "Ooh, uncomfortable."
It was really good.
Here's a question that you have to answer, and it's something that's secret. And he was like,
"And I'm 11. I'm an 11-year-old girl in a bell dress, and how dare you not answer my question?" So
Last question. Before we wrap up, I'm just paying attention to time.
Please, I see it.
Thank you so much.
It's
last
right there.
question. Best advice for somebody who's thinking, I want to put together a live event around my show or around podcasting in general. What is your best advice?
Me?
If you want to start out slow or, small and try to feel it out, coffee shops, places like that, maybe bookstore or somewhere will let you take a corner and do something like that where you can kind of get your feet wet a little bit.
Yeah, coffee shops are really good.
Coffee shops are great
because they're looking for a reason to have people kind of come in and you can take a corner. And
it's a little painful when people spend the entire time. They come in not for you and then they talk over the
They talk
which
over
is what
it,
happened
you
to
hear
Blue
the
Box.
coffee
happens
machines
at Blue Box all
going,
the time.
but-
And we just got used to it, but that's a little hard.
But it's a great way to get your feet wet doing it. Okay, the easiest thing is talk to us.
And how do they do that?
You can contact us.
By us, we mean him. Don't talk to
Yeah, talk to me. And I, like I say, I give it away. I love to talk about how to do this stuff. I love to encourage people and give advice. You can email us at southgatemediagroup@gmail.com. Yes, it's free email, so we still use it. And that goes right to me. On Twitter, I'm at rsouthgate or at SMGpods. We have 60-some Twitter accounts. Seriously.
So you should be able to find it.
I really don't look at all of them all the time. I look at those two every day. And I look at Women in Podcast Festival every day. Yeah, and then there's something else coming, but we can't talk about it.
We can't talk about our big.
Stay tuned.
Like world is exploding.
Holy
big.
crap.
Suspense.
Yeah.
It happened after the marathon last week.
Because after every time we do a big event, we have to come up with a bigger.
We're like falling asleep, dying in bed, and Martha goes, it
was because of you.
Know, because I had the one about
it was because of you.
About the women in podcasting. She had one that was like,
it's bigger.
Let's take your little thing, and I got this idea, and it was like, oh great, we're not sleeping tonight, are we?
Yeah, no, or ever again because this is too big.
No, it's amazing. Can't talk.
But we can't talk about it yet.
Well, on behalf of all of the podcasters that you to support through these live events and all the work that you're doing, also the Facebook group for Chicago Podcasters Unite.
Yeah, I run that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you're not in it, join it.
And if you want one in your city, we'll help you.
Yes, big idea there. If you're not in Chicago and you want one of those, we want to take Chicago Podcasters Unite and expand it into the other cities. So there can be Detroit Podcasters Unite or whatever.
We will help you.
All you got to do is be the admin on it.
Yep.
And we'll help you put that together. It's super easy.
We'll help you figure out how you do any kind of meetup and things like that.
Yeah, and you can do meetups and marathons and all sorts of fun stuff. But talk to me about any of this stuff. Write to me. I love it. Love it.
This has been Podcast Envy. I'm Andrea Klinder, your podcast boss. This has been Rob and Martha Southgate. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klinder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as lemon cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz. And hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Imposter Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.